Hi, everyone. I'm Laura Buccieri, the director of publicity at Copper Canyon Press, and you are watching our interview series, Line Break, which goes off the page and into the homes and minds of our beloved poets. I've always had the dream of seeing more poets represented on screen, talking shop, answering questions, and just kind of taking us behind the scenes of how they do what they do. In this episode, we are speaking with Kayleb Rae Candrilli. Kayleb, thank you for being here. How's your day going?
Survived the dentist, received a package in the city, and now I'm here. So
Surviving the dentist is, yes, an
yeah,
accomplishment in and of itself.
I did Uber home though. I treated myself to that.
Thank God. You
Yeah.
just did that after the dentist? Absolutely.
Mhm.
Well, I'd love to have you intro yourself if possible. Maybe name, pronouns, where you live, most recent book or books you've published.
Well, I'm Kayleb. My pronouns are they, them, theirs. I live in the gritty city of Philadelphia. We have the best mascots. Most recently, All the Gay Saints came out on Saturnalia Press. That came out in May. And Water I Won't Touch is coming out in April with Copper Canyon. And my favorite thing about myself is that I'm a bro.
I love that.
I love football and light beer. And I definitely had a stint a few months ago where I thought I was going to become a professional sports bettor. So
Wow.
that didn't work, but
Well, still mine.
Yeah.
Who says you have to be professional at it? You could always just be a sports bettor.
I just think I have to be a professional at everything. And then once I realize that I can't, I abandon ship.
That's fair. Plus, you're already a professional poet, so how much more room is there, truly?
But what if I could be a professional poet and a professional sports bettor?
That'd be one in a million. I love it.
I'm gonna revisit next year.
After this.
Yeah, right after this.
Well, I am wondering if we could almost take a trip back in time a little bit, and kind of go back to when you were first drawn to poetry. And I'm kind of curious, if you saw yourself represented in the language or the characters or the themes kind of in poetry, or was there another kind of inspiration that pushed you to write or read poetry? Was it just something that you kept coming back to? I'm kind of curious.
My mom told me I was going to be a writer. So I was like, no, I'm not. And that probably kept me away from it a little bit longer than it should have. So I was 17 when I graduated high school, and I went to the University of Arizona. I was going to walk onto the softball team with a bad MCL.
Oh my God.
That didn't work.
Confidence.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a good softball team. So that didn't work. And I was studying demography. So I wanted to study that.
Wow.
Yeah.
You went into Arizona like knowing you wanted to study that?
Yes, geography, and underneath that, like demography as emphasis.
Yeah.
I was 17 and I was sure. Yeah, and then I got mono and couldn't play rugby.
There are so many turns in this story.
I know, and it's all like in 4 months. And then I saw this poster because I wasn't hanging out with anyone because I had mono and no one wanted to hang out with me, even though I wasn't contagious anymore. And I saw a poster for Sister Spit. And they were going to come to the hub. So I went alone and I met Michelle T. and Amos.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, and Kira von Schraber, read their poetry. And I was like, oh, you can make art and travel?
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, go ahead.
Then I left the University of Arizona, went to Penn State, and studied writing for 8 years.
Wow. So why the shift from Arizona to Penn State?
Well, I'm pretty sure my girlfriend lived in
I
Pennsylvania
see.
at the time.
Okay.
Yes. So, I mean, there was another motivating factor. But if I look back at it, it was definitely, I wanted to go to Penn State and write. So,
That's interesting. So like you said, oh, you could write and travel and like read these poems that you've written. That's like really interesting that you picked up on like the lifestyle of poetry as well as the like words in and of themselves. Because I think people kind of can forget that like being a poet is also like some kind of lifestyle in the sense that like you're probably also working another job, probably traveling when we all could, you know, for tours, you're going to conferences, you're, you know, doing panels, you're doing all these things. So it's interesting you picked up on that initially.
yeah, it can take you places. And that was pretty unequivocally clear when I saw them, you know, and they talked about the tour they'd been on. And no, it didn't seem like it was paying boatloads, but they were happy to be there. And I was too. So,
Did you, at that point, had your experience with poetry, had you been taught poetry at all? Or was the poetry you were taught just not memorable at all?
I was homeschooled until 10th grade.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the Calvert curriculum, which had like a lot of poetry in it, a lot of architecture and art and stuff like that. So, but everything had an answer key. And my mom was like the facilitator. Wouldn't grade my tests. That was done by like a third party person. But, you know, she would ask me these questions about Emily Dickinson's use of the M dash, and I'd just like answer it. And then she'd be like, I don't know. And then check the answer key. And I was right. And I was like 11. So I suppose it was there.
And now I understand why she thought you were going to be a writer.
Yeah.
You're
But I was
answering,
like,
know
no.
what an M dash is at age
Yeah.
11.
Yeah. And I overuse them still.
Me too.
Yep.
Me too.
Mhm.
The extra work you have to go to on Google to put
I'll
the M
do it.
dash in is terrible.
I'll do it. I'll do anything for the M dash. Mm-hmm.
I love that loyalty.
Yeah.
Wait, so okay, so but at Arizona, you were, I guess, playing rugby and thought you were going to walk onto the softball team.
Okay.
So
So when I realized I couldn't walk onto the softball team, I was like, I gotta play a sport.
I see.
So then I was into the club rugby, and then I got mono, and they were like, your spleen, you can't play rugby.
No, definitely not.
Yeah.
So, but then did you still carry on? Like, did you still play sports and stuff like that as
That
you?
was it.
That was it. That was truly it.
That was it. That was it.
Wow.
Never again. I was like, ah.
Gosh, mono really, really, it's mono brought you to poetry.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know. I just stopped.
That's wild. I love that. So, did you start, I guess, writing poetry for the page? Was it poetry to be performed? Was it because you saw kind of your first experience, it seems, was poetry in front of an audience, you know, like live poetry.
I
Was
don't
that
know
at all?
what I thought it was, but it was
Yeah.
really bad. And I know that. And just hubris was definitely a problem for me personally in all aspects of my life. I think it came from like the athlete stuff. I was very good at sports. So then when I decided to do something new, I kind of just assumed I was good at it.
Yeah.
It's not the case.
First
But
thought, best thought.
yeah, and I had this big binder of terrible poems, humongous like this. And I went to Penn State and I brought it to the person teaching me like English 15, like the intro Rhet comp class. And God bless her, she took it home with her, like pounds, you know, like pounds of and she comes back with it and she's like, hey kid, you really got something. I'm gonna pass you along forward.
Wow.
And objectively speaking, like I had nothing. And that little lie was very important.
Yeah. I mean, I think having somebody who is in a position of power per se, like, or a position of knowledge, I guess, say, hey, like, you've got something, like, hey, I see something, like, I've been there, that's huge, because you have no idea, you're kind of shouting into the void when you're writing poems. At least that's how I feel. And until I need somebody, I need that other person to kind of stop the shout and tell me, is this something or is it nothing? And that's, yeah.
She sent me right to Julia Kasdorf and Robin Becker. So
Wow.
I was in good hands pretty immediately. I ended up teaching that same Rhett comp class 3 years later. So it was a very neat little
circle.
Yes. Yeah.
Did anybody present you with a binder as large?
I got someone to drop out of biology and pursue theater. That's my equivalent. I was like, no. my perfect student. Biochemistry is not for you.
Well, you've changed their life.
Yeah, now they teach theater.
They teach theater? Oh my God.
Yeah, they teach theater in a high school.
Did you ever try, I know you're an athlete, did you ever try any other, like, were you into theater? Were you into, like, did you play music? Did you do any other, like, art form seriously at all? Or even unseriously?
Like
did you try?
Like a chronic bro.
Okay.
Like, truly, it was like sports. And then when the knees went out and mono, I was like, I guess art seems like a really good place to go. I was like, my body could definitely do art longer, right?
For sure.
Yeah.
No, I mean, let's hope, I guess.
Let's hope.
Let's hope. Yeah. Right. Well, I'm curious. So you've written what, 3 books? Is this your 3rd book to be published, correct?
Yeah. The 3rd book's coming.
3rd book. That's a lot of books at kind of a younger age, perhaps. I don't know. I'm curious. Like, are you just a really quick writer? I know you're actually 50.
These white hairs growing.
Yeah. Going on 90. I'm curious. Like, are you just a really, really quick writer? Are you just really interested in certain themes that come out in kind of book length kind of endeavors? Do you not even think about it and you're just kind of like, oh, like, I've been writing and here's like another book length thing that's here, another binder.
Binder, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna bring back like the powder blue binder.
You should.
Yeah. I don't know. I think it probably externally looks like a quick process. It doesn't feel like a quick process for me. Each book takes 3-4 years behind kind of closed doors before anything is announced. Sometimes they're written in simultaneity. Things get swapped from one to the next. So I don't know.
How really? Like, there are poems that have gotten swapped from one book to another?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Do you feel like,
I don't know if that's, maybe it's interesting insofar that it happened. I don't know necessarily that it's a good thing, because it means kind of tonally maybe not as much has shifted between one book to the next. So that's something I kind of have to be aware of. But when I'm swapping them, I am trying to recognize something about tone and saying, this is a mismatch. Maybe you belong over here.
Well, yeah. And I mean, it does seem to me, at least, that your books each have, like, all of them together actually, like, lend themselves to this arc, right? And so, yeah. And so I think, the fact that they can be switched does actually, I guess, in hindsight, make sense, because you are telling this narrative throughout all 3, although they're in no way a series or anything like that. That's not what I'm implying, but they do tell a larger story.
Yeah, and I don't know why. You can read them however you like, but I do enjoy the idea of them being read chronologically. There's something about that is exciting to me. And I guess that comes from, what I've found to be important for me as a writer, one that has, I think, overpublished in a lot of regards, or started maybe too early. Maybe that's more what happened. I wanted everything to be out there. I wanted to like have this digital footprint of art that people, particularly trans people, could look at. And, you know, blueprint is probably not the best word, but look at as kind of like a potential map and then kind of pick their own path. I wanted to publish a lot because not a lot of trans people were getting published or
Yeah.
I didn't find them, you know?
No,
like,
yeah.
You can have everything, even if it's bad, just make it public. What
Yes.
that does to your psyche is, you know, up for debate. But that's why I did it. That's why I started early. I think legacy is another like tricky word, but I want to have books kind of left in my wake. Because I don't know, like, how long does a trans person in a fascist regime live? I don't really know.
Yeah. No, I think that's fair.
Not forever. So that's part of it too.
Yeah. I love that. And I wonder, have you received, like, have you seen anybody, has anybody made contact with you that's kind of seen your work and seen it as a blueprint? Like, and if they have, I'm sure that must be like when your teacher passed your binder along, you know what I mean? And you don't have to answer that, but yeah, I mean, I think representation is a tricky word that gets thrown around quite a bit. And I think half the time we don't really know what we mean when we say representation. But I do think the importance of just being there and having something to latch on to, having something available online, like even your bio, having your bio available to somebody, for somebody to search. Like, just even your bio is a blueprint in my mind. And I think that's really great for somebody who's searching and needs that, you know?
I mean, what did I have when I was a kid?
I don't know.
Rocket power.
I loved rocket power.
So good. And like every queer kid,
I know,
anywhere in our bracket of generation was like, all of these cartoons are queer. Do you know? All of them.
all of them.
All of them. Peter Pan, like obviously. All of the Pokemon trainers were like really, really twinky people. So I think that was wonderful, right? And kind of fantastical, but why should I have to like flex my imagination as an 8-year-old?
To fit yourself into something that's not necessarily there.
It's amazing that we can do it, right? That like we already have this innate ability to queer things, to make things camp, to take what we want and need. Like, it's amazing that we're capable. It should just, that shouldn't be the only way you get what you need.
That's, yeah, you said that so well. I can't try to re-say it. And the motorcycle will not let me anyway. Outside
Very
the window.
campy, the motorcycle.
Yeah, exactly. Right. I know. Sound effects. Who knew on this poetry interview? Well, I'm wondering, would you at all be able to read us a poem from anything that you've written? It doesn't even have to be a book. And maybe if you've been reading anything lately that you want to give a shout out to, I would love to hear it, if possible.
Cool. All right, so I'll read from Water I Won't Touch. And this poem is called Water We Won't Touch. Very clever, huh? You have a good there? All right. Reunited after years apart, my sibling is how I imagine they would be. Hair pink and lit up like a highway flare. A fire that always tries to keep itself alive, even in the rain or as the tide rolls up. For years, my father had my sibling waterlocked, drug spun, surrounded by the Pacific and saline flesh needles. And still, my sibling burned. When we were young, my father used his hands for everything. He used his hands to describe how lightning almost took him. He and the lightning, the only bodies on the beach. His feet smoked up, charred on the bottoms. A spider web of fire spun as the storm lashed onto shore. The sand turned to silica glass around him. My father has always been spared, and my father is the closest thing I know to a sinner. What is the third degree, if not a near smiting? Sometimes I wonder about the vastness of the ocean and how best to avoid its anger. My sibling and I loved each other most during storms. I know this. When my sibling tells me, after all these years, about the pink lightning that hovered over a town full of pink houses, I know that we haven't been totally beaten. What is a family if not preparation? We can smell a storm coming before anyone. I swear, we can taste it rolling in.
Thank you so much. The many forms of water in that are so good.
Thank you. Yes, water I touch, water I don't touch,
Right.
water we touch. And then, these people are in the pool, so they're
they
definitely
get to touch the water.
They're touching the water. I know. What was I thinking?
I love it.
And then I've been reading Aon Ginsberg's work, and this is a book called Greyhound. So much transportation, like so many buses, so much kind of queerness hurtled through space. Yeah, and they're a poet I really care about and admire and think more people should be reading. So Greyhound.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Aon Ginsberg.
That is fantastic. I appreciate that. That will be on my list. I promise you that.
Yeah.
Thank you. Well, Kayleb, thank you so much for being here, for taking the time to do this and just, reading us your work and talking about kind of how it comes to be. So I really appreciate it. Thank you for taking the time.
Thank you for having me. It made my Friday better.
Oh, good. Well, I was competing with the dentist, so I think the bar was set low.
It made it very much better. It made it a good day.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, and we will see you next time. Thank you.